what makes a person do something truly evil? I mean, really, why do some people cross a line that most of us wouldn't even dream of approaching? That is the huge, timeless question we're going to try and unravel right now by digging deep into the very roots of crime.
So let's start with this incredible piece of art by M.C. Escher. I want you to look really closely here. You see the white shapes, right? Those are angels. But now, look at the black space between them. Devils. They are literally carved out of the exact same space. And this is such a powerful visual for a deep psychological truth. That line between good and evil, it's not some big solid wall. It's flexible, it's blurry, and it can all depend on how you look at it.
So that really brings us to the absolute heart of it, doesn't it? What is it that actually makes a person, maybe even a totally ordinary person, cross that blurry line from the angel to the devil? Well, to even begin to answer that, we're going to look at it through three very different, very powerful lenses. Okay, so our first stop, our first lens, comes from the work of a psychologist named Stanton Samenow, and his argument is pretty radical. He says that if you want to understand crime, you shouldn't be looking at a person's poor upbringing or their bad neighborhood or any of that. Nope. He says you need to look inside their head. For him, crime is, at its core, a matter of choice. So here's the kicker from Samenow's book, Inside the Criminal Mind. He argues that criminals are not victims of circumstance. They're not just pushed into a life of crime because of things that happen to them. He says they actively choose that path. Why? Because they operate with a completely different set of thinking patterns that lets them justify their actions and their whole view of the world. And he has a name for these patterns: criminal thinking errors. Now, this is really important. These aren't mental illnesses, not in the way a doctor would diagnose one. Think of them more as deeply ingrained, twisted habits of thought, a way of seeing the world that consistently lets a person put what they want above the rights, the feelings, and the safety of everyone else. And here are just a few examples of what he's talking about. You've got that my way or the highway mindset, where any kind of compromise feels like a personal defeat. There's this constant, low-level anger, like a pot that's always just about to boil over. And then there's this profound lack of empathy. They just can't put themselves in their victim's shoes. In fact, they often do the complete opposite and see themselves as the real victim in the situation. It's a worldview that is 100% self-serving. This quote just perfectly sums up this entire first perspective. The root of crime isn't something out there in the world. It's in here. It's a series of conscious, though completely warped, choices that come from a broken way of thinking. But what if it's not just the mind's software? What if the problem is actually with the brain's hardware? And that question is the perfect bridge to our second lens, where we shift from psychology to straight-up biology. This is the world of neurocriminologist Adrian Raine, and he suggests that for some people, the tendency towards violence isn't just a bad choice. It might be literally built into the physical structure of their brain. He's a pioneer in this new field called neurocriminology. And basically what they do is use modern technology, like brain scans, to hunt for actual physical markers in the brain that might make someone more likely to be violent. As he says in his book, The Anatomy of Violence, it's about digging for the deep biological roots of why people do bad things. And you know what? The things they're finding are just startling. Look at this. The prefrontal cortex, you can think of that as the CEO of your brain, the part that handles decision-making and tells you, hey, maybe don't do that. Well, in many violent offenders, it shows way less activity. And the amygdala, the part that processes things like fear, that can also be physically different. You put those two together, you get poor impulse control mixed with a lack of fear. And that is a truly dangerous combination. So Raine's conclusion, captured right here, is, well, it's a bombshell. He's suggesting that maybe crime isn't always a moral failing or a thinking error. Maybe, for some, it's a symptom of a kind of neurodevelopmental disorder, a broken brain. So we've looked at the criminal mind, and we've looked at the broken brain, but there is one more massive piece to this puzzle. So let's pivot now to our third and final lens, which comes from the social psychologist Philip Zimbardo, and he argues that maybe, just maybe, we've been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe the issue isn't about bad apples, bad minds or bad brains. Maybe the real problem is the bad barrel we put them in. This is the exact question that drove all of Zimbardo's research, and it's a question that really challenges our most basic ideas about ourselves. We all like to think of ourselves as good people, right? That if push came to shove, we do the right thing. But would we, really? no matter what the situation?
So to put this idea to the ultimate test, Zimbardo designed one of the most famous and infamous experiments in history, the Stanford Prison Experiment. He took a group of regular, psychologically sound college students and, with a coin toss, randomly made them either guards or prisoners in a fake prison he built in a basement. Remember, these were all good apples when they walked in the door.
And what happened next was absolutely terrifying. The experiment, which was supposed to last 2 weeks, had to be shut down after just 6 days. The students playing guards had become genuinely cruel, some of them sadistic, and the prisoners, they were having mental breakdowns. Zimbardo gave this shocking transformation a name, the Lucifer Effect, named for God's favorite angel who became the devil.
So the big takeaway here, the huge lesson from Zimbardo, is that the power of a situation can be just overwhelmingly powerful. A bad barrel, a toxic environment, can absolutely corrupt the good apples inside it. The right, or maybe I should say the wrong, set of circumstances can push ordinary people to do truly terrible things.
Okay, so let's take a breath. We have 3 totally different explanations, right? A criminal mind, a broken brain, and a bout situation. They almost seem to cancel each other out. But the real truth, the much more complicated truth, is all about how these pieces fit together. And Adrian Raine, the neurocriminologist we talked about, gives us the perfect way to think about this. He calls crime a biosocial jigsaw puzzle. See, biology isn't destiny. Someone might have a piece of that puzzle, a brain that's wired for low impulse control, but that piece doesn't do anything on its own. It often takes social factors, environmental pieces, to complete the picture and, pull the trigger. Think of it like a recipe for disaster. Step 1, a person is born with a biological predisposition, maybe that reduced function in the prefrontal cortex Raine talked about. Step 2, growing up, this brain chemistry makes it easier for them to fall into those criminal thinking errors that Samenow described. And then step 3, that person is dropped into a powerful negative situation, a bad barrel like Zimbardo created. 1, 2, 3. It's the perfect storm for evil. And that leaves us wrestling with this incredibly difficult and honestly pretty scary question. If a person's choices are shaped by their thoughts, and their thoughts are influenced by the physical wiring of their brain, and that wiring is then triggered by the situation they're in, where does personal responsibility even begin? Who is truly to blame? And that is the question we are going to dive into next time, as we explore what all of this means for our ideas of justice, punishment, and free will.